The sound of Nina's laughter cut through our living room like broken glass. She was holding court again, wine glass in one hand, phone in the other, surrounded by her usual crew of social media parasites. I watched from the kitchen doorway, nursing a beer and wondering how my wife had become this stranger who treated our home like her personal stage. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Oh my God, you guys remember Julian, right? Nina's voice carried that particular pitch it got when she'd had too much wine. Her friends, Gina, Lexi, and Sam, leaned in like vultures sensing fresh gossip. I was just thinking about how different things could have been. I should have walked away, should have gone down to my basement office and pretended to work on code while my marriage dissolved upstairs. Instead, I stayed frozen in the doorway, watching my wife of 5 years perform for an audience that would sell her out for Instagram likes. Julian Blake? Gina squealed, her voice sharp enough to cut diamonds. The fitness trainer? Girl, he is still fine as hell. I saw him at SoulCycle last week and nearly fell off my bike. Right? Nina's eyes lit up with that manic energy she usually reserved for viral TikToks. He messaged me last month, said he missed our conversations. Can you imagine if I had stayed with him instead of... She gestured vaguely in my direction without even looking. My grip tightened on the beer bottle. 5 years of marriage, and I'd become a gesture. A vague wave of the hand. The stable choice, the safe bet, the boring husband who paid the bills while she chased influencer dreams and collected followers like trophies. Nina, I said quietly, stepping into the room. Maybe we should... Oh, speak of the devil! She spun around, wine sloshing dangerously close to our white carpet. Girls, meet my husband Quentin. Software architect, very responsible, makes excellent money. She said it like she was listing the features of a reliable sedan. Safe, practical, gets good mileage. Lexi, who I'd never liked and who'd never bothered to hide her disdain for me, smirked. Nina was just telling us about her ex. The one who got away, right, babe? The room went quiet except for the soft buzz of ring lights and the distant hum of traffic outside. Sam had her phone out, of course, probably live streaming our domestic drama to her 12,000 followers. Everything was content to these people. Every moment of pain, every private humiliation, all of it was just material for their next post. Nina's cheeks flushed pink, but she didn't back down. If anything, the attention seemed to embolden her. Well, I mean, if I had to choose between Quentin and Julian... She paused for dramatic effect, playing to her audience. I'd pick him. Julian, I mean. At least he knows how to have fun. The laughter that followed was like acid in my veins. Gina snorted wine through her nose. Lexi cackled like a hyena. Sam kept filming, her eyes bright with the thrill of capturing someone else's misery. And Nina, my wife, the woman who'd promised to love and honor me, basked in their approval like a sunflower turning toward poison light. Something cold and sharp crystallized in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Anger was hot and messy and made you do stupid things. This was different. This was clarity. Pure mathematical precision. I set my beer down on the coffee table with deliberate care. The soft clink of glass on wood seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Nina's smile faltered as she finally looked at me. Really looked at me. You can go back to him, I said, my voice calm and level. You just don't know what's waiting for you there. The color drained from Nina's face. Her friend's laughter died like someone had flipped a switch. Even Sam lowered her phone, sensing that something had shifted in the room's atmosphere. Something dangerous. Quentin, I was just... Nina started, but I was already walking away. Enjoy the rest of your party, I called over my shoulder. I have some work to do. I went downstairs to my office, closed the door, and sat in front of my computer. Above me, I could hear nervous laughter and hushed conversations. Someone turned the music up louder, trying to recapture the party mood, but the damage was done. The mask had slipped, and everyone had seen what lay underneath. I opened my laptop and got to work. Not on code this time, on research. 3 hours later, the house was finally quiet. Nina's friends had left around midnight, their departure marked by a flurry of air kisses and promises to do brunch soon. I'd stayed in my basement office, listening to their footsteps overhead, waiting for the sound of the front door closing for the last time. Nina had tried to come down once around 1 a.m., her heels clicking uncertainly on the wooden stairs. "Quentin, are you coming to bed?" I'd ignored her. After a few minutes, she'd given up and gone upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close, then the sound of running water as she went through her elaborate nighttime routine, skincare products that cost more than most people's car payments, all part of maintaining the image, the brand, the carefully curated life she'd built on social media. Now, at 2:30 in the morning, I had the house to myself and unlimited access to our shared digital life. Nina had always been careless with passwords, using the same few combinations for everything. Her birthday, our anniversary, Julian's name. That last one had been a particularly bitter discovery 6 months ago. I started with her phone, which she'd left charging on the kitchen counter. Face ID wouldn't work while she was asleep upstairs, but I knew her passcode. I'd watched her type it 1,000 times. Zo725. July 25th. The day she'd first met Julian Blake at a CrossFit gym in downtown Portland. Her messages opened like a digital diary of betrayal. The group chat with her friends was exactly what I'd expected, a constant stream of gossip, complaints about their husbands, and increasingly frequent mentions of Julian. But it was the private messages that made me freeze. "Julian, thinking about you tonight. Remember that weekend in Cabo?" "Nina, stop it. You know I can't think about that." "Julian, why not? You seemed pretty happy then. Happier than you look in your Instagram posts these days." "Nina, it's complicated. Quentin's a good guy, but..." "Julian, but?" "Nina, but he's not you." The conversation thread went back months. Hundreds of messages. Photos I didn't want to see. Plans for secret meetings that had apparently been happening right under my nose. Coffee dates that had turned into lunch dates that had turned into long afternoons at Julian's downtown loft. I screenshotted everything, methodically building a digital case file. Not for divorce court, though that might come later, but for something more immediate, more personal. I found what I was looking for in the group chat from earlier that evening, sent after I'd gone downstairs. "Nina, OMG, you guys. I think I really messed up tonight." "Gina, what do you mean? That was hilarious." "Nina, the way Quentin looked at me. I've never seen him like that." "Lexi, so? Maybe it's time to stop pretending. You've been talking about Julian for months." "Sam, literally months. Just go be with him if that's what you want." "Nina, it's not that simple. Julian's engaged now, remember? To that rich girl, Elise." "Gina, so? He messages you constantly. Obviously, he's not that committed to her." "Nina, I know, but..." "Lexi, but nothing. Meet him tomorrow. You said he wanted to see you." "Nina, he did ask me to lunch, said he had something important to tell me." "Sam, do it and live stream it. The drama would be amazing for your follower count." "Gina, yes. And if Quentin gives you grief, just remind him that he's lucky to have had you this long." "Nina, you guys are terrible, but maybe you're right. Maybe it is time to stop pretending." I stared at the screen for a long moment, processing what I'd just read. My wife of 5 years was planning to meet her ex-boyfriend tomorrow, encouraged by friends who saw our marriage as nothing more than entertainment. They were treating the destruction of my life like a reality TV show. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I was just going to sit there and take it. That I'd play the role of the boring, betrayed husband who'd cry into his beer and beg for another chance. They were wrong. I opened a new browser window and started typing. Julian Blake, Portland, Oregon, fitness trainer. It didn't take long to find his social media profiles, his business website, his professional headshots, and most importantly, his relationship status, engaged to Elise Winters, daughter of real estate mogul Robert Winters. Elise Winters was everything Nina pretended to be. Actually wealthy, not just Instagram wealthy, genuinely beautiful, not filtered and posed, and based on her social media presence, completely unaware that her fiancé was carrying on an emotional affair with his ex-girlfriend. I crafted my message carefully. Ms. Winters, I hope you'll forgive me for reaching out like this, but I believe there's something you should know about Julian. I'm attaching some screenshots that I think you'll find interesting. My wife has been in contact with him for months, and they're planning to meet tomorrow for lunch. I thought you deserved to know. A concerned party. I attached the most damning screenshots. The ones where Julian talked about Cabo, where Nina called him irreplaceable, where they made plans to meet. Nothing explicit enough to be truly humiliating, but enough to make it clear that Julian's loyalty to his fiancée was questionable at best. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I opened a new tab and started researching apartment rentals in the downtown area. If Nina wanted to choose Julian over me, she was welcome to make that choice, but she was going to make it with full knowledge of the consequences. By 4 a.m., I had a plan. By 6 a.m., I had a new apartment secured, a moving truck reserved, and a very interesting phone call scheduled with our landlord. By 7 a.m., I was showering and getting ready for work, just like any other day. Nina stumbled into the kitchen around 8:30, looking hungover and guilty. She'd put on extra makeup to cover the bags under her eyes, but nothing could hide the nervous energy radiating from her like heat waves. "Morning," she said carefully, not quite meeting my eyes. "You were up early." "Work," I replied, pouring coffee into my travel mug. "Big project timeline coming up." "About last night," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't worry about it, you were drunk. People say stupid things when they're drunk." Relief flooded her face. "Exactly. I didn't mean anything by it. You know that, right?" "Of course." I kissed her forehead, tasting the lie on my lips. "Have a good day, Nina. I hope you get everything you're looking for." She smiled, thinking she'd dodged a bullet, thinking her boring, predictable husband had rolled over and accepted her casual cruelty, thinking she could have her cake and eat it too. She had no idea that in 4 hours, her entire world was going to implode. I spent the morning at work in a state of hyper-focused calm, fielding calls from the moving company, the apartment complex, and our landlord. Everything was falling into place with the kind of precision that only came from careful planning and burning bridges. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "This is Elise Winters. Thank you for the information. I'll be handling this personally." I allowed myself a small smile. Elise Winters hadn't built her reputation in Portland's social scene by being passive. If the society pages were to be believed, she was the kind of woman who collected her enemies' heads as trophies. At noon exactly, I left the office and drove to Meridian, the upscale restaurant where Nina was supposed to meet Julian. I'd seen the address in their message thread, along with Julian's promise to finally tell her the truth about his feelings. I parked across the street with a clear view of the entrance and waited. Nina arrived first, at 12:15. She'd dressed carefully for this lunch. The black dress that she knew looked good on her. The designer handbag she'd bought with money from our joint account. The confidence of a woman who thought she was about to reclaim her lost love. She checked her reflection in the restaurant's window, smoothed her hair, and walked inside like she was walking into her future. Julian showed up 10 minutes later, looking exactly like the kind of man Nina thought she wanted. Tall, athletic, with the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to worry about mortgage payments or health insurance. He was wearing expensive workout clothes, the uniform of a man whose job was looking good for other people. He paused outside the restaurant, checking his phone. probably texting Elise some excuse about why he'd be late getting home, or maybe checking his messages with Nina one more time, making sure his story was straight. He never saw Elise coming. She appeared as if from nowhere, moving with the kind of purpose that made other pedestrians step aside instinctively. Even from across the street, I could see the fury radiating from her like a force field. She was dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Nina's car, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun that meant business. Julian's face went white when he saw her. He started to back away, but Elise was faster. She grabbed his arm and marched him toward the restaurant entrance, her voice carrying across the street even though I couldn't make out the words. I got out of my car and walked closer, pulling out my phone to record what was about to happen. If Nina wanted drama, she was about to get more than she'd bargained for. They disappeared inside, and for a moment, the street was quiet. Then the shouting started. Even through the restaurant's windows, I could hear Elise's voice cutting through the ambient noise like a sword. Other diners were turning to stare, phones coming out to capture the spectacle. In today's world, every public meltdown was just content, waiting to happen. I pushed through the restaurant's front door just as Elise's voice reached a crescendo. "Lying, cheating piece of garbage! Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" The scene inside was everything I'd hoped for and more. Nina was standing frozen by their table, her face a mask of confusion and growing horror. Julian was backed against the bar, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender that looked more pathetic than protective. And Elise, beautiful, furious, publicly humiliated Elise, was holding her phone in one hand and a glass of water in the other. "Elise, please, let me explain," Julian started, but she cut him off. "Explain what? How you've been texting your ex-girlfriend for months? How you told her she was irreplaceable? How you've been meeting her behind my back?" Elise's voice carried to every corner of the restaurant. Conversations had stopped. Servers had frozen mid-step. Even the kitchen staff had come out to watch the show. Nina finally found her voice. "I don't understand. Julian, you said—" "He said what?" Elise turned her attention to Nina for the first time, and I watched my wife shrink under that withering gaze. "That he was going to leave me for you? That he loved you? Let me guess. He told you his engagement was just for show, right? Just until he could figure out how to break it off?" Nina's silence was answer enough. "You pathetic little girl," Elise continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than her shouting had. "Did you really think Julian Blake was going to give up a trust fund for a wannabe influencer with 15,000 followers?" The water hit Nina square in the face, and the restaurant erupted. Phones appeared from every direction, recording the moment from multiple angles. Nina gasped and sputtered, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks in black streams. "You want him?" Elise turned back to Julian, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "You can have him, but you're getting him broke, because I'm cutting him off. No more credit cards, no more car payments, no more rent on that loft. Let's see how attractive he is when he's sleeping on your couch." She threw her engagement ring at Julian's feet, where it bounced once and skittered under a nearby table. "We're done, and Julian, my father's lawyers will be in touch about the money you owe me." Elise walked out with the kind of dignity that only came from growing up with real money and real power. The restaurant stayed silent for a long moment after she left, everyone processing what they'd just witnessed. Then Nina started crying. Not the pretty, delicate tears she used for her social media posts, but ugly, body-shaking sobs that made her nose run and her voice crack. Julian moved toward her, but she pushed him away. "You said you loved me," she choked out. "You said you were going to leave her." I do love you," Julian stammered, but even he didn't sound convinced. "This is just... it's complicated." "Complicated?" Nina's voice rose to a shriek. "You let me humiliate myself. You let me ruin my marriage for this?" I chose that moment to step forward, pulling out my phone to text Nina. Her phone buzzed on the table, and she grabbed it with shaking hands. The message was simple. Enjoy your new life. I've moved out. Don't bother coming home. You don't live there anymore. Nina stared at the screen, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally dawning horror. She looked around the restaurant wildly, as if she could somehow locate me through the crowd of strangers recording her breakdown. "No," she whispered, then louder. "No, no, no, this isn't happening." She tried calling me, but I'd already blocked her number. She tried texting, but those bounced back too. She was shouting into the void, and the void was recording every second of it. Julian tried to comfort her, but Nina turned on him with the fury of a woman who'd lost everything. "This is your fault," she screamed, hitting his chest with her fists. "You ruined everything. You promised me." "I never promised you anything," Julian said, and for the first time, his mask slipped too. Without Elise's money backing him up, without the safety net of his wealthy fiancée, he looked smaller, weaker, like the kind of man who made promises he never intended to keep. "I never told you to leave your husband." Nina's face crumpled. She grabbed her purse and ran for the exit, pushing past other diners and leaving Julian standing alone by their untouched table. He looked around at the sea of phones recording his humiliation, threw a 20 on the table, and followed her out. I waited 5 minutes before leaving, just long enough to overhear the excited conversations around me. "Did you get that? That was insane. I'm posting this right now. This is going to go viral." Poor girl. But honestly, what did she expect? That guy's a total loser. Good for the blonde for dumping him. By the time I walked back to my car, the videos were already appearing on social media. Meridian Meltdown was starting to trend. Nina's humiliation was being broadcast to thousands of strangers, dissected and mocked by people who didn't even know her name. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number, probably Nina, trying to reach me from Julian's phone or a borrowed phone from the restaurant. I declined the call and drove back to work, whistling softly under my breath. Phase 1 was complete. But I wasn't done yet. The rest of the week passed in a blur of logistical satisfaction, moving my belongings out of our old apartment and into my new downtown condo, changing my address with the bank, the post office, my employer, methodically untangling 5 years of shared life with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. Nina had tried everything to reach me. She'd called my office, but I'd warned my assistant to screen my calls. She'd shown up at my workplace, but building security had turned her away when I'd claimed not to know who she was. She'd even tried reaching out through social media, creating new accounts when I blocked her existing ones, but I was always one step ahead. The videos from Meridian had indeed gone viral, just as I'd predicted. Meridian Meltdown had been viewed over 2 million times across various platforms. Nina's face, streaked with makeup, twisted with rage and humiliation, had become a meme. "When you realize your side piece isn't worth it," was the most popular caption, shared thousands of times by strangers who found her pain entertaining. But I wasn't satisfied yet. Public humiliation was just the opening act. I wanted Nina and Julian to understand the full consequences of their choices, to feel the weight of what they'd thrown away in pursuit of their selfish desires. That's when I remembered Marcus. Marcus Rodriguez had been my roommate in college, back when we were both broke computer science majors living on ramen and energy drinks. Now, he managed the largest luxury car dealership in Portland, catering to the kind of clients who bought vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. I called him on Friday afternoon, and he agreed to meet me for drinks at our old college bar. The place had been gentrified since our student days, craft cocktails instead of cheap beer, exposed brick instead of wood paneling. But Marcus looked exactly the same, still tall and lean, still wearing his signature mischievous grin. "Quentin Frost," he said, clasping my hand in a firm shake. "I heard through the grapevine that you're newly single. Congratulations or condolences?" "Congratulations, definitely." I ordered us both whiskey, the good stuff. "Actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you. I need a favor. I told him the story, the party, the humiliation, Nina's affair, the restaurant confrontation. Marcus listened with growing amusement, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. So let me get this straight, he said when I finished. Your wife publicly chose another man over you, got humiliated when that man turned out to be a gold digger, and now she wants you back. That's the short version, yes. And you want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Marcus grinned. What do you need? I pulled out my phone and showed him Julian's Instagram profile. This guy, Julian Blake. He's been financing his lifestyle through his ex-fiancée, but that gravy train just derailed. I'm betting he's about to make some desperate financial decisions. Like buying a car he can't afford? Exactly. And when he does, I want to be ready. Marcus studied Julian's photos, the gym selfies, the expensive restaurants, the lifestyle shots designed to project success and confidence. Guy looks like a tool. What's your timeline? Soon. He's got to be scrambling to maintain his image now that Elise cut him off. Men like Julian don't know how to live without other people's money. I was right. On Monday morning, Marcus called me at work. Your boy just walked onto my lot, he said, barely containing his laughter. Asking about lease terms on a BMW M4. Claims he's got excellent credit and a steady income. Does he? Hell no. I ran a preliminary check. His credit's decent but not great, and his income as a personal trainer isn't nearly enough to qualify for what he wants. But he's desperate to look successful, so he's willing to sign anything. Perfect. Can you stall him? Already am. Told him I need to run some additional checks, verify his employment, the usual. He'll be back this afternoon. I'll be there. I took a long lunch and drove to Marcus's dealership, parking in the customer lot with a clear view of the showroom. At 2:30, Julian arrived in an Uber. Apparently, Elise had reclaimed whatever vehicle he'd been driving too. He looked different than he had at the restaurant. Still handsome, still projecting that artificial confidence, but there was a desperate edge to it now. His clothes were expensive but not new. His watch was flashy but probably fake. He was a man playing a role he could no longer afford. Marcus met him at the entrance with a salesman's smile and led him to a gleaming black BMW parked in the showroom's center. I watched through the windows as Julian ran his hands over the car's surface, already seeing himself behind the wheel, already imagining how it would look in his Instagram posts. They talked for 20 minutes. Julian signed papers, shook hands, posed for photos next to his new lease. Marcus handed him the keys with appropriate ceremony, and Julian drove off the lot like he owned the world. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I'd spent the weekend preparing Julian's welcome gift. Nothing illegal, nothing that would cause permanent damage, but something that would make it clear that his actions had consequences. The beauty of Julian's situation was that he'd moved into a cheap apartment complex after losing his downtown loft, the kind of place where security cameras were broken more often than they worked and residents minded their own business. It was easy to slip into the parking garage at 3 a.m., locate his shiny new BMW, and get to work. I started with the interior. Glitter bombs hidden in the air vents, set to go off when he turned on the air conditioning. Liquid ass, a novelty stink bomb that smelled exactly like its name, sprayed into the upholstery where it would be absorbed and impossible to remove. And finally, my masterpiece. I reprogrammed his car's Bluetooth system to automatically connect to a playlist I'd created, filled with songs about cheating, betrayal, and karmic justice. For the exterior, I kept things simple but effective. I used washable paint to write cheater across his windshield in letters large enough to be seen from space. And in the glove compartment, I left my old wedding ring with a note. Thanks for taking out the trash. Then I went home and waited. Julian discovered my handiwork at 7 a.m. when he came out to drive to his first client appointment. His howl of rage echoed through the parking garage, followed by a string of profanity that would have made a sailor blush. I knew this because I was parked across the street, recording everything on my phone. Julian tried to clean the windshield, but the paint I'd used was designed to be stubborn. He managed to smear it around, making it worse instead of better. When he finally gave up and got in the car, the glitter bombs went off, covering him in a cloud of pink and gold sparkles that stuck to his sweaty skin like fairy dust. The smell hit him next. Even from across the street, I could see his face contort in disgust. He tried to roll down the windows, but that just activated the Bluetooth system, and suddenly, Carrie Underwood's "Before He Cheats" was blasting from his speakers at maximum volume. Julian stumbled out of the car, covered in glitter, reeking of artificial ass, looking like he'd been attacked by a vengeful unicorn. He pulled out his phone to call someone, probably the police or maybe a tow truck, but I'd already gotten what I came for. The video was only 3 minutes long, but it captured everything perfectly. Julian's shock, his rage, his desperate attempts to salvage his dignity while covered in glitter and gagging from the smell. I uploaded it to an anonymous Twitter account with the caption, "When you mess with someone's marriage, sometimes karma comes with glitter." Within hours, it had been retweeted thousands of times. The internet loved a good comeuppance story, especially when it involved someone who looked like Julian getting his just desserts. Glitter karma started trending, and Julian's humiliation joined Nina's in the digital hall of fame. But I still wasn't done. Nina and Julian had humiliated me publicly, treated my marriage like a joke, assumed I would just roll over and accept their betrayal. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. 2 weeks after the glitter bomb incident, Nina finally tracked me down. She was waiting outside my new building when I came home from work, sitting on the steps like a lost child. She'd lost weight, and not in a good way. Her clothes hung loose, her hair was unwashed, and the dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights and constant anxiety. "Quentin," she said, standing up as I approached. "Please, we need to talk." I considered walking past her, pretending I didn't recognize this hollow-eyed stranger who used to be my wife. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to hear what she had to say, what excuse she'd crafted, what story she'd told herself to justify what she'd done. 5 minutes, I said, not inviting her inside. Talk. "I made a mistake," she began, the words tumbling out in a rush. "A huge, terrible mistake. Julian he wasn't who I thought he was. He was using me, just like he was using Elise. I see that now. Congratulations on your moment of clarity. Don't be like that. Please." Tears started flowing down her cheeks, but they didn't move me the way they once would have. "I know I hurt you. I know I said terrible things. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over, pretend none of this happened." "Pretend?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nina, your humiliation has been viewed by millions of people. My glitter bomb video has 3 million views. There's no pretending any of this didn't happen." Her face went white. "That was you? The car thing?" "Among other things, yes." "But why? I thought you'd want me back. I thought you'd forgive me." "Why would you think that?" She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Because you love me. Because we're married. Because that's what husbands do." "What husbands do," I repeated slowly, "is trust their wives not to publicly humiliate them. What husbands do is expect their wives to choose them over ex-boyfriends. What husbands do is believe that their marriage means something." "It does mean something. It means everything to me now. I realize what I lost, what I threw away. Julian's nothing. He's broke. He's desperate. He's been calling me non-stop begging for money. You're the one I want. You're the one I choose. Now you choose me. After you chose him. After you told your friends you'd pick him over me. After you planned to meet him behind my back." I shook my head. "That's not how choice works, Nina. You don't get to keep making the same choice until you like the outcome." "But people make mistakes. People deserve second chances." "Some people do," I agreed. But not you. Not for this. I started to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. What about our life together? Our home? Our plans? Our future? Are you really going to throw all of that away over one stupid comment? I turned back to face her, and for a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. She genuinely didn't understand. In her mind, this was all just a misunderstanding, a temporary setback that could be fixed with tears and apologies and promises to do better. She didn't realize that the person she'd married, the man who would have forgiven her, who would have gone to counseling, who would have pretended none of this happened, no longer existed. That man passed away at our party, ruined by her laughter and her friends' approval and her casual cruelty. "Nina," I said gently, "do you remember what you said to me that night, when your friends were laughing?" "I was drunk. I didn't mean it. You said you'd choose Julian over me. You said it in front of witnesses, in front of people who recorded it and posted it online. You made that choice publicly, definitively, cruelly." I pulled my arm free from her grip. "I'm just making sure you get to live with it." "That's not fair." "Fair." The word came out sharper than I'd intended. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you compared me to Julian every chance you got? Was it fair when you made plans to meet him behind my back? Was it fair when you let your friends treat our marriage like a joke?" She had no answer for that. "You made your choice, Nina. You chose excitement over stability, drama over devotion, Julian over me. The fact that Julian turned out to be a disappointment doesn't change what you chose. It just means you chose poorly." I walked toward my building's entrance, fishing my keycard out of my pocket. Nina followed, still talking, still pleading, still trying to negotiate her way back into a life she'd voluntarily abandoned. "Where am I supposed to go?" she called after me. "What am I supposed to do?" I paused at the door and looked back at her one last time. She looked small and lost and utterly defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd held court in our living room 2 weeks ago. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but that's not my problem anymore." The door closed behind me with a soft click, cutting off her voice, cutting off her tears, cutting off the last connection between us. I rode the elevator to my new apartment, poured myself a glass of wine, and stood at the window looking down at the street below. Nina was still there, sitting on the steps, crying into her phone. Probably calling her friends, looking for someone to take her in, someone to tell her that this was all a terrible mistake that could still be fixed. But her friends had abandoned her after the restaurant incident, embarrassed by their association with her viral humiliation. Julian was broke and desperate, in no position to help anyone. And I, the boring, stable, reliable husband she'd thrown away, was no longer available. She'd wanted excitement. She'd wanted drama. She'd wanted to feel alive. I hoped she was satisfied with what she'd gotten. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Saw the news about Julian's car getting repossessed. Apparently he missed his first payment. Thought you'd want to know." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks for the update." Nina was still sitting on the steps when I went to bed an hour later. But when I woke up the next morning, she was gone. I never saw her again. 3 months later, I received divorce papers in the mail. Nina was asking for nothing. No alimony, no division of assets, no claims on my pension or savings. She just wanted out, wanted to officially end what had already been destroyed. I signed them without hesitation and mailed them back the same day. The last I heard, Nina had moved back in with her parents in suburban Seattle, working at a local coffee shop and keeping a low profile. Her social media accounts had been deleted after the harassment became too much to bear. Julian had disappeared entirely, his Instagram account dormant, his personal training business closed. As for me, I was doing better than ever. My new apartment was everything I'd wanted. Modern, clean, quiet, with a view of the city and no memories of failed marriage or broken promises. My work was going well, my savings account was growing, and I'd even started dating again. But the best part was the knowledge that I'd won. Not just the divorce, not just the division of assets, but the war itself. Nina and Julian had tried to make me the victim of their story, the boring husband who got left behind while they rode off into their passionate sunset. Instead, I'd made them the villains of their own destruction. Every time someone watched those viral videos, every time Bakken Meridian Meltdown or Glitter Karma got shared, people saw them for what they really were. Selfish, cruel, and ultimately pathetic. They'd wanted to humiliate me, but in the end, they'd only humiliated themselves. And I'd been there to document every second of it. Sometimes, late at night, I'd pull up those videos and watch them again. Nina's face when the water hit her. Julian covered in glitter, gagging from the smell of his ruined car. The look in Nina's eyes when she realized I wasn't coming back. Those moments belonged to me now. Proof that actions had consequences, that choices mattered, that even boring, stable, reliable husbands had limits. Nina had joked that if she had to choose between me and Julian, she'd pick him. Her friends had laughed. She'd basked in their approval. But I'd gotten the last laugh after all, and it was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard.